This month on Urban U, we honor Black History Month at Queens College, celebrating trailblazing journalist and women's rights activist Carol Jenkins. We meet Gridlock Sam, the Brooklyn College alum who put a name to every New Yorker's worst commute. A quick look at climate resilience with CUNY's FloodNet New York City, and more, including a Next Gen CUNY conversation with a DJ from Baruch College. This is Urban U.
Cars, buses, people, New York is a city in constant motion. Understanding how traffic flows, or doesn't, can impact millions of people daily.
In the 1960s, there was a lot of study of the science of traffic. And essentially, there are patterns that emerge. And those patterns can be defined mathematically.
Sam Schwartz is a transportation expert who's been studying traffic for 50 years. He worked with top city officials, became one himself, coined a phrase, and now he is donating $1 million to CUNY. This is the story of Gridlock Sam. The youngest of four, Sam grew up in Brooklyn during a time when people were leaving New York City in droves. And as a young boy, he felt it personally.
My brothers left me, my best friend left me for the suburbs, my Dodgers left me for Los Angeles. All my cousins moved to the suburbs. I hated suburbs.
This was during a time when the country was rethinking city living.
From the 1930s to the 1960s, the car was viewed as the savior of America. People don't want to live in cities. Cities were dirty. So if we build these huge highways to the suburbs, people can decide to live away from the people that they don't want to live next to. So it was kind of pretty ugly in the 60s.
Sam was studying physics at Brooklyn College and wasn't sure what to do after graduating. He asked his older brother for advice.
He said, well, you're pretty good in math, plus science, plus cities. And he goes, traffic.
Sam listened. He continued his education, this time at the University of Pennsylvania.
I came out of a city school. Am I good enough for the Ivy League? Well, at Brooklyn College, I was an average student. At Penn, I became a star. So I knew that CUNY gave me that opportunity. My first job was with the traffic department as a junior engineer. We had this mayor, John Lindsay, and he understood what happened to cities. He closed Central Park and Prospect Park to cars on weekends. He closed some streets in Lower Manhattan. What that did is redefine the streets for people as opposed to streets for cars.
And having a pedestrian-first approach quietly aligned Sam with environmental groups.
They had a mole within the traffic department that was feeding them data and countering the arguments that the traffic department was making. And that mole was me. 1978, I was the deep throat of city government at the time, never caught. But it launched my career.
Sam was appointed as Assistant Commissioner of the Department of Transportation. Then came the 1980 transit strike, which threatened to paralyze the city. Sam seized the moment, and in the process, gave New York a new word.
I needed something for City Hall to say, we're going to let Schwartz run this show. We used to talk about the grid in Manhattan, but we never really said gridlock. So I decided to put into the plan we would submit to City Hall the grid-lock prevention plan. And soon the media went wild over gridlock.
The strike elevated Sam to traffic commissioner. He served for 4 years before the political winds shifted.
There were people within the administration who made it clear that I should look for another job, which was a shock to me.
Once again, his brother stepped in with another idea and some great career advice.
He said, Become the weatherman of traffic. Predict tomorrow's traffic today, and call yourself Gridlock Sam.
That's exactly what Sam did, and he wrote his column for more than 3 decades. He also authored a couple of books on traffic and launched his own company.
Called it Sam Schwartz Engineering, and there was a spin-off business from that of helping pedestrians cross the street. So I created a group called Pedestrian Traffic Managers.
The company dealt with pedestrian issues throughout the United States and all over the world.
Met with the North Koreans on redoing North Korea, met with the South Koreans on a unification plan, convincing LA that the answer is not more highways.
This year, Sam Schwartz began his next chapter.
I sold the Pedestrian Traffic Management Company. I decided to take a chunk of the money from the sale and start a not-for-profit transportation research program at a place where I was teaching, and also at a CUNY school, which was really important to me.
The program is called the Sam Schwartz Transportation Research Program at Roosevelt House at Hunter College.
It's this beautiful dwelling on East 65th Street that was a home for Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his wife Eleanor. This became the launching ground for his presidency. So this is just an amazing setting for generating ideas. And so it's almost the perfect place for a public policy program.
It will focus on some of transportation's most urgent issues, from safety to congestion pricing to microtransit vehicles, and to create a standard report card.
There is no one entity that tells you how well or how poorly is New York City doing. How many trains are on time and what is the speed of traffic? How many people are walking or biking? There is no one repository of all that information. We're gathering that.
A kid from Brooklyn and a proud CUNY graduate, Sam Schwartz has spent his career studying and shaping the way cities flow. His legacy is both personal and civic, the love of the family that raised him and the family that he raised. And he's also looking forward, creating a program and a path for the next generation to keep the city moving. For Urban U, I'm Linda Simidian.
This is the 7th subway stop named after a CUNY school. And I have 26 campuses, right? So we have work to do, John. We have work to do.
This is a school that churns out top-tier talent, especially in business.
For 20 years, Baruch is trying to get his name on the subway sign, and finally today, we make that happen.
When people are in the mood doing what they love to do and they're just locked in, they're focused, I call it a glow. Ever since I was younger, when I played sports, I was in my glow. My senior year of high school, Jason Demas came to my playoff game. At the time, I wasn't planning on going to college at all. I went to a trades high school. I wanted to pursue the unionized trades. I was a plumber's apprentice for about 6 months. After 3 months, I realized that plumbing was not for me. It was not a matter of hard work, because I'm not someone that's shy of hard work. It was a matter of, if I'm gonna be working this hard, I wanna work this hard for myself. So I reached out to Jason, and then he had mentioned, your spot's still open if you want it. What was appealing about Queensborough was affordability, and I wouldn't just be a student, I'd be a student athlete. When I first met Jason, he spoke a lot about his program history and how Queensborough has had a record of winning every year, and that he would help me become a better player and a better setter. And that's what really intrigued me. Since I started playing last year, I feel like the improvement is ridiculous. I'm very proud of myself, and that is because of Jason. But I'm a student first. Student government, student athlete, student comes first, because without my studies, none of this would be possible. And then student government, I feel like right now comes second because it's more than just myself. Like, I'm representing all of the students at QCC, and I'm also part of University Student Senate. So now I'm representing students from all across the CUNY system. And then of course, my sports are important as well.
Carol Jenkins, esteemed journalist, author, and civil rights advocate. You have devoted your entire career, your life, to advancing racial and gender justice in the spirit of Dr. King.
I never met Martin Luther King Jr., but the impact that he had on my life was phenomenal. And I had to look it up again. It was 1964 that I actually, Queens girl, somehow got on a plane and went to Lincoln, Nebraska to see Martin Luther King Jr. It was a Christian event. Thousands of people gathered on Lincoln, Nebraska. And one of the things that I learned, in addition to hearing his marvelous, compelling way of addressing our situation, was that in Lincoln, Nebraska, if there was a stop sign that said, "Do not walk," nobody walked. It was the most astonishing thing, being from Queens. So there were two experiences there, and I looked around and I said, what's the matter? Nobody's crossing the street. And somebody said, "Don't you see that sign? It says, 'Don't walk.'" I said, in Queens, we never pay attention to things like that. So, but I did when I arrived at Boston University in 1962. Martin Luther King was already a national hero. He had received his PhD in theology from BU in 1955. He had also led by then the bus boycott with Rosa Parks in Montgomery. And I was privileged enough to meet his spiritual advisor, the theologian Howard Thurman, the dean of Marsh Chapel at BU. It was Thurman's exposure to Mahatma Gandhi in India and Thurman's influence on King that led to the movement of change that we know of as peaceful nonviolence. Our second connection was my family farm. If you're going to talk about the confluence of this, the Gardner Farm in Lowndes County, Alabama, where I spent the first 3 years of my life, which was the third stopover in the historic 50-mile march King led from Selma to Montgomery. On the soggy night of March 23rd of 1965, the marchers gathered and slept on our front lawn in preparation for entering the city of Montgomery the next day. That property, which is still in our family, had been gifted to my grandmother from her father, Hugh Carson, who served in the Alabama legislature during Reconstruction. Recently, last year, our family at our family church in Lowndes County had a celebration of that historic march, which was more personal than the gigantic one that we all know of everyone crossing the bridge and whatever. So this was a family celebration. But as a part of that was one of the marchers who was a teenager and walked that walk. We got the impression that her parents had pressed her into service. She wasn't exactly, eager to do it, but she did it nevertheless. But one of the things that she never knew was the farm that she slept on the third night was owned by a black family. She always assumed, that it was what black families owned farms in Lowndes County, Alabama. So we brought her back to the farm and showed her around. And it was one of those moments of, we know that we're part of history, but to be able to share that with someone who spent her time walking those 50 miles and to have her be able to say and to know that that was a black-owned farm was really quite something for us. And now the third connection was through my uncle, A.G. Gaston, the Birmingham businessman who posted bail for Martin Luther King in the spring of 1963. I don't know whether you remember that. That's where what came out of that jailing was the letter from a Birmingham jail, which we've used, as a symbol of resistance and of his bravery ever since. My daughter and I wrote a book about our uncle, A.G. Gaston, called Black Titan. And we always laugh about the fact that while my uncle, at President Kennedy's insistence, bailed him, got him out of jail, Martin Luther King did not want to come out of jail. It was a negotiation. We always talk about the negotiating with the negotiator. A.G. Gaston saying to Martin Luther King, "Sir, you cannot stay here. You have got to come out." And Martin Luther King, who believed that for the effort, for the march, it would be better for him to stay. Fortunately, he had written on scraps of paper and on the edges of a newspaper the letter from a Birmingham jail. And so we know from that point on, that his comment that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere was written in that jail.
Still up on Urban U, how CUNY is tracking flooding across New York City, and a Next Gen CUNY chat that's all about music.
FloodNet NYC aims to inform communities about imminent danger from flooding by using sensors to measure water levels at the ground level. CUNY is at the forefront of not only the research and development side, but also CUNY students are installing these sensors in places like the Soundview section of the Bronx.
So what we have there is an ultrasonic sensor. It's the same principle that a bat signal. So it's like an ultrasonic chirp, or a little beep that's emitted every minute. And the time it takes to get the echo back is proportional to the distance to the ground. So it's measuring distance to ground constantly. When we start getting a flood, that distance is going to change. The reflection is going to be shorter and shorter, and so that means that the distance is shorter. Because we're doing a measurement every minute, and the floods typically take 5 to 10 minutes to rise, it will give us a very nice profile of how the flood progresses.
Ricardo Toledo-Crow is a principal investigator with FloodNet and a professor at CUNY's Advanced Science Research Center. He works with students in the field to install the sensors.
This is now the 325th sensor, and that is our commitment to the city, because we are being funded by the City of New York, the Department of Environmental Protection. We also have them around the neighborhoods close to the waterfront, so a lot around Jamaica Bay and some parts of Astoria.
FloodNet NYC came out of the FloodWatch project, a crowdsourced program that sees flooding in real time.
That relied on people's reporting of floods, a lot of photography, a lot of photographs, a lot of reports. The trouble with that is that if it happens in the middle of the night and nobody's there to witness it, it doesn't quite make it. We can tell you how deep the flood was and how long it lasted. So that helps us a lot with the modeling, and also it helps the city with dealing with the floods.
The data dashboard, which anyone can use and look at, helps residents in real time.
We can actually start seeing the floods a good 20 minutes before there are like the official alerts going out. NYC Emergency Management is taking our data, with weather data and rain data, and using that to mobilize. A lot of people keep an eye out on their local sensors to figure out when it's time to move their cars, when it's time to take care of, clearing things out from the basement, because that's when the water is coming. All this work, all our effort is open source, and it's available to anybody who wants to use it and reproduce it.
Because it's sort of like for the protection of the community, right? Like getting better ideas of when it's flooding and when it's safe to go, or when it's unsafe and things like that. So I think people generally consider it to be like a benefit.
For me, it's kind of humbling to be a part of this. Something that serves a purpose on a large scale. Just to be a part of it, just to know that an event happens, and maybe that sensor that that I was a part of that install maybe can direct the right resources at the right time to be there.
For Urban U, I'm Craig Thompson.
You better lock your phone. I'm not won't take a lot to get you going. I'm sorry if it's touchy,
Hi everyone, I'm Isabel Ortiz and welcome to Next Gen CUNY, where we spotlight CUNY changemakers who are breaking barriers in their careers and in their communities. Today I am joined by a fantastic guest. He's a Baruch College alum and a DJ whose passion for music is opening doors and building community everywhere he goes. I am thrilled to be sitting down with Tyler Marin. Hi Tyler, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
I am so excited to be sitting down with you because I've always been so interested in the idea of what it means to be a DJ. What does that look like? Especially because nowadays I feel like a lot of people are trying to become DJs. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like it went from like overnight, you just had your actual DJs, and then now it's almost like a trend to want to be a DJ and be in the clubs and kind of have that spotlight. But, I've been a DJ since before it was cool.
Before it was cool.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like sets you apart from the people who are trying to become DJs nowadays?
I truly always had a passion for music and like a deep love for it, in the sense of before even wanting to mix records, I wanted to just have an appreciation for it. I kind of had coaching at home because my dad was a DJ back in the days too. Okay. So there was always equipment in the house. So, thankfully I had that resource.
DJ Tyler.
Also, you're a Queens native. Just that borough in general brings along this incredible history of music. So how did those two backgrounds come together and make your music taste and what you decide to play?
Being raised in Queens, I had a lot of friends from different nationalities, different backgrounds. So at a young age, I was exposed to a lot of music that may have not been played in my house. So for example, also my mom being from Queens had that same experience. So she used to play a lot of different music. So she would play reggae, like Bob Marley. She would play all types of dance hall, Latin music, rock music. So I got exposed to like the Beatles and Nirvana and stuff like that. But she was a real big hip hop head. So that's where I got my love for hip hop.
You are a Baruch College alum, but you spent a lot of time at Baruch DJing some of the events. Can you tell me a little bit about that, how that all came together?
So I was what they consider like a bedroom DJ. Okay. So like basically just someone that stays at home and practices all day. I wasn't doing no gigs until like towards the end of high school. So when I got to Baruch, I started doing little events with the college station. Then the pandemic hit and basically everything shut down. So I had joined one of the many great organizations at Baruch. It was called LASSO, the Latin American Students Organization. Through that, I had started a Zoom platform. It was like a Zoom radio show. It was called, it was mad funny because it was called LASSO Lounge. And my whole thing was just trying to make a club in your apartment through Zoom, Okay. So from there, I was just doing events every single week, just kind of getting my name out there, networking with people in real life. And they're like, hey, we remember you from Zoom. Like, I'll never forget sitting in one of my math classes, and this girl turned around. She was like, am I bugging? Are you the DJ from Zoom? So
you're like a campus celebrity.
I was just like, man, I'm just a DJ. But, it was definitely a fun time.
During your time at Baruch, you became an intern at multiple places, and one of those places was Sirius XM. Can you tell me about how that process kind of went of you finding an internship and then landing it at Sirius XM? There was
an organization called T. Howard, and fantastic organization. I recommend if you're interested in media, definitely look into them. So I had sat down with them, did an interview. I told them, I'm a DJ. I'm very interested in the media industry. I'm really interested in radio. And they took a liking to me. They had me go through a couple different interviews. And that's how I found myself getting my first internship in media, which was with Comcast, NBC Universal. The whole time I was with T. Howard, my main goal was to work for Univision. And then I saw an opening for Univision in ad sales as an intern. So I had applied to it. And I had gotten it. From there, I noticed that they didn't really need too much intern assistance on Mondays and Fridays. So I spoke to my manager in the summer, and I was like, hey, I'm really interested in radio. Being an intern, I kind of want to like explore. Is it cool with you if I go and take a trip over there? They allow me to kind of do a split internship, 3 days in the New York office doing ad sales, and then 2 days doing helping out with the radio station, doing promotions. And, when we'd be done with promotions, I would just hang around the radio station all day, just absorbing everything like a sponge. And they had reached out to me and asked if I was interested in an internship at Sirius. So I was like, wow, this kind of lined up nicely.
Perfectly,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, so I went through the whole interview process. And, thankfully I had landed that internship, and I was there for 7 months.
But you were able to take your internship at SiriusXM and turn it into a full-time position doing music programming and producing. Can you tell me a little bit about what your day-to-day kind of looks like in that role?
We're basically taking on studio sessions for all types of channels. So, one day I may do a studio session with like a, crazy country singer, or it could be Dwayne Johnson. You never know who's coming through that door, or who you're meeting, or who you connect with. There's working on Sway shows. Like my day-to-day, I may come in, help out with Sway show in the morning, draft up questions that Sway may use or may not use, or he may even let me ask them on air and stuff like that. There's been instances of that. Helping out behind the scenes. If the main producer's out, I may have to produce the show and run the boards. Outside of that, helping out with behind the scenes programming. So a lot of the shows that go on that may be pre-recorded or, kind of rerun, we'll go ahead and place those. Aside from that, just mostly producing shows and hanging out and doing sessions and, all the fun stuff like that.
But I wanted to know, because music has this power of bringing people together no matter what language you speak, what you look like. When you're behind the booth, where do you see your role in that?
So like one of the main differences between like DJing in a club and you have a party, or even like DJing on campus, you could see your audience, right? On radio, you're kind of playing to a blind audience, you know, like at least I'm blind to the audience. But in a party, you could see it in real time. So if I play a record and I may think, oh, yeah, this record's going to hit, and I'm looking at the crowd and no one's dancing, all right, now I know it's time to switch it up and, pivot and play something. You're just always reading the crowd and kind of picking up on the vibe of the room. So a great example that really taught me that also was Baruch, because it's such a diverse crowd. There's been times I've DJ'd for Caribbean Association. There's been times I DJ'd for Lasso, Acetone, which is all Dominican. So there's nights I'll go from soca to dembow to Afrobeats to merengue,
Yeah.
and reggaeton, and then bring it back to hip hop, So Baruch really gave me that versatility. So I always am grateful for that and doing all those parties because it built up my music collection even more. But yeah, that's the big difference.
But looking ahead, what creative goals are you hoping to reach? Like, what is your next kind of benchmark, would you say?
So my next creative goal, I definitely want to start my own platform. I know everybody's on the podcast wave and, things of that nature. I would love to start one, still working on it, still building up my connections to really make something, that has the same spirit of what I did in Zoom during COVID, but bringing it to like this now TikTok prevalent era and just bringing people together and still keeping that energy up.
Well, I see it happening for you. Just seeing your journey thus far and your determination, I'm sure that will happen for you. And I'm very excited to see what happens for you next.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It was a pleasure getting to speak with you.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's an honor to be here.
That's our show. Thanks for watching these stories about CUNY, where public education shapes the urban life of New York City. See you next time.